In February 2000, Katherine Knight stabbed John Charles Thomas Price to death and cooked his remains, then served them to his 2 children. Most lovers' quarrels eventually end with a simple apology, but for Katherine Knight, murder and mutilation were the end result. Not only did this Australian abattoir worker stab her lover John Charles Thomas Price with a butcher knife at least 37 times on February 29, 2000, she then chopped him up, cooked him, and prepared to serve him to his own children. But long before this grisly killing, the disturbing story of Katherine Mary Knight was marked by violence and sexual abuse that hinted at the bloodshed to come. Hello viewers, today's story is one of the most disturbing you'll ever hear. Katherine Knight didn't just kill her boyfriend, she cooked his remains and tried to serve them to his own children. So without wasting any time, let's dive straight into the video. Katherine Knight's brutal childhood was the first chapter in a life filled with violence, trauma, and darkness. Katherine Knight was born on October 24, 1955, in Tenterfield, Australia. Katherine Mary Knight was the product of a scandalous affair between her mother, Barbara Ruffin, and her father, Ken Knight. Ruffin was not only already a mother of 4 boys with another man, but she even met Knight through her husband. When their secret rendezvous came to light, it rocked their small conservative town. In school, Knight was known as a bully who terrorized smaller children. Without ever learning how to read or write, she quit at the age of 15 to work at a clothing factory. A year later, she landed her dream job at a slaughterhouse, cutting out the internal organs of animals. Journalist Peter Lalore wrote in Bloodstain, his true crime book that covered Katherine Knight, that she loved her job so much that she hung her first set of butcher's knives over her bed, just in case she ever wanted to use them. And eventually she did. Knight tries to kill her husband on their wedding night. While working in the butcher shop, Knight met David Kellett, a raging alcoholic much like her father, who was prone to fistfights. Accustomed to a life of violence and chaos, Knight shocked her new beau when she eagerly joined in on one of his drunken brawls, a glimpse into the darkness that would define their relationship. He soon realized, however, that Knight was capable of doing more than a little damage with her fists. Before long, he found himself completely dominated by her, a shift that left him powerless against her growing fury. In 1974, she convinced him to marry her. He was heavily intoxicated the entire time, and her mother even warned him about her daughter's temper, saying that Knight had a screw loose somewhere. On their wedding night, Knight and Kellett consummated their marriage 3 times. When he finally fell asleep, Knight craved a 4th round, and when her new husband's exhaustion made him unwilling, she took matters into her own hands, starting to strangle him. Kellett woke up and managed to fight Knight off. Even though she had attempted to kill him just 1 day into their marriage, the union lasted for 10 more years. But make no mistake, the marriage was far from perfect. Kellett was often unfaithful, and once he even left his wife and their 2 daughters in the middle of the night. After discovering one of Kellett's affairs, Knight snapped, placing their 2-month-old infant on the local train tracks, just moments before a train was due. The train didn't come, and the infant was spared. She also threatened several people with a stolen axe, her fury knowing no bounds. She was also diagnosed with postnatal depression after witnesses saw her violently pushing and swinging her 2nd child in a stroller down a busy street, a chilling sight that left those around her deeply disturbed. She spent a few months in a psychiatric hospital, where she confided in nurses that she intended to kill a mechanic who had fixed Kellett's car, because that made it possible for him to leave her. Despite this chilling threat, Kellett took Knight back when she was released from the hospital. Their reunion didn't last long though, and Knight plunged into a period of deep distress after Kellett finally did leave her. Katherine Knight's string of toxic relationships. In 1986, shortly after her breakup with Kellett, Katherine Knight jumped into a whirlwind romance with David Saunders, a local miner, desperate for love, but unaware of the storm that would soon follow. Within a few months, Saunders moved in with her and her 2 daughters. However, he kept his apartment, and Knight became incredibly jealous and suspicious about what he did when she wasn't around. Like her previous relationships, this one quickly grew toxic and violent. At one point, she slit the throat of his 2-month-old dingo puppy in front of him, just to show him what she was capable of. Still, they stayed together and even had a daughter a year later. However, Saunders left Knight shortly after the birth because she had attempted to kill him with a pair of scissors. She then met a man named John Chillingworth. They stayed together for 3 years and had a child, Eric, Knight's first son. While no violent incidents have been reported about their relationship, it ended after Chillingworth learned that Knight was having an affair with a man named John Charles Thomas Price. Knight's violent relationship with John Charles Thomas Price. The beginning of Katherine Knight and John Price's relationship was without complications. He had 2 older children who lived with him and seemed to like Knight, and he made enough money as a minor to keep her comfortable. They moved in together in 1995, and things were going smoothly. However, when she suggested they marry and he declined, she turned violent. Knight framed Price for stealing things from his company and got him fired. Though he initially kicked her out, a few months later, they started seeing each other again. However, this time, he refused to let her move back in. According to their friends and neighbors, Knight's violence then began to escalate. In February of 2000, an argument between John Charles Thomas Price and Katherine Knight culminated with her attempting to stab him in the chest. He took out a restraining order against her in an attempt to keep his children safe. Toward the end of the month, Price let on that he was concerned for his safety and told his co-workers that if he ever went missing, it was because Knight killed him. He was right to be afraid. Murder, mutilation, and a macabre dinner menu. On February 29, 2000, John Charles Thomas Price came home from work and followed his usual routine of checking in with the neighbors before going to bed at 11 p.m. Knight came home shortly after, made herself dinner, watched TV, showered, and then went upstairs. She woke Price, the two had sex, and he went back to bed. Then, Katherine Knight took a butcher knife from next to her bed, where she had always kept them, and stabbed Price 37 times. According to evidence, he woke up during the attack but could not fight her off. He succumbed to his wounds and Knight dragged his body downstairs, skinned him, and hung his body from a meat hook in the living room. Then she decapitated him and cut up pieces of his body to cook in a dish with potato, pumpkin, beets, zucchini, cabbage, squash, and gravy. She then made a dish for herself, though the half-discarded contents later found at the crime scene suggest that she couldn't finish her meal. She then lay down next to the headless, mutilated corpse of Price, took a large number of pills, and passed out. Price's co-workers heeded his warning the next morning and called the police after he didn't show up for his shift. The police arrived to find Katherine Knight's gruesome crime scene and immediately detained the comatose Knight. Once she woke up, she claimed to have no memory of the night before. In the kitchen, police found Price's head, boiling in a pot of vegetables on the stove. On the table, they found 2 full plates, each labeled with a name. In horror, the police realized that Knight had planned to serve John Price's body parts to his children. Katherine Knight, never to be released. Despite her claims that she had no recollection of the night John Charles Thomas Price died, Katherine Knight was quickly charged with his murder. In October of 2001, her trial commenced, but it didn't get very far. For reasons that remain unclear, Knight changed her plea to guilty, and the judge adjourned the case without testimony. She was escorted to prison that day, and the judge ordered that her papers be marked never to be released. For the first time in history, a woman in Australia was given a life sentence without parole. To this day, Knight nevertheless maintains her innocence and refuses to accept responsibility for her actions. Katherine Knight has appealed her sentence before and was denied almost immediately. She is still serving her life sentence at Silverwater Women's Correctional Centre. Viewers, this was the disturbing story of Katherine Knight, how she killed her boyfriend and then served his remains to his children. What do you think about this chilling tale? Share your thoughts in the comment box below and let us know how you feel about this gruesome act. Thanks for watching. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories. And remember, if you or anyone you know is battling dark thoughts, don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional. The weight of these stories, they can take a toll, so please take care of yourself. Until next time, take care of yourself, and I'll meet you in a new, interesting video.